Life is Beautiful wasn't just a Holocaust film, it was a $20 million gamble that sparked Mel Brooks' fury, ignited one of cinema's most vicious critical debates, turned a 5-year-old into the youngest award winner in Hollywood history, created the most joyous Academy Awards moment ever captured on camera, and proved that making people laugh about concentration camps could either be genius or unforgivable, depending on who you asked. Behind the whimsical romance and devastating tragedy lay a production fueled by a father's wartime trauma told as bedtime stories, a director's restaurant brainstorm that became a cultural phenomenon, and a backlash so fierce that Nobel laureates and legendary filmmakers went to war over whether comedy belonged anywhere near the Holocaust. What audiences saw as a heartwarming tale of parental love was, in reality, one of cinema's most polarizing artistic choices, a film that dared to find beauty in humanity's darkest chapter and paid the price in both adoration and outrage. Today, we're peeling back the whimsy to reveal 12 weird facts about Life is Beautiful, and stick around for a bonus fact about the title that nearly destroyed the film before it premiered. Number 12. Mel Brooks declared war. The legendary Jewish comedian and World War II veteran didn't just criticize Life is Beautiful. He called it a crazy film and questioned Roberto Benigni's sanity for making it. In a 2006 interview with German newspaper Der Spiegel, Brooks unleashed his fury. It showed the barracks in which Jews were kept like cattle, and it made jokes about it. The philosophy of the film is, people can get over anything. No, they can't. They can't get over a concentration camp. Brooks, who had mined the Third Reich for laughs in The Producers and History of the World, Part 1, drew a hard line at finding comedy inside the camps themselves. His most cutting attack was personal. Tell me, Roberto, are you nuts? You didn't lose any relatives in the Holocaust. You're not even Jewish. You really don't understand what it's all about. This wasn't film criticism, it was character assassination from a man who had earned the moral authority to make such judgments. Brooks's condemnation represented a larger fury among some Holocaust survivors and Jewish communities who felt Benigni had trivialized their suffering for Academy Awards glory. The controversy split the Jewish community, with some survivors defending the film, saying humor existed even in Auschwitz, while others felt its sentimental fantasy diminished the Holocaust's incomprehensible horror. Brooks' fury demonstrates how Life is Beautiful didn't just spark debate, it ignited rage that still burns decades later. Number 11. The youngest award winner ever. Giorgio Cantarini was exactly 5 years old when filming began, making his debut performance in Life is Beautiful one of cinema's most remarkable child acting achievements. His portrayal of Joe Sway earned him the 1999 Young Artist Award, Jackie Coogan Award, making him the youngest winner of this prestigious Hollywood honor and the only Italian actor to ever receive it. Cantarini's casting came through his uncle, who read a newspaper article describing the kind of child Benigni needed and told the family Giorgio was a perfect match. The audition consisted simply of a conversation with Benigni, no acting required. Once shooting began, the 5-year-old was told what to do scene by scene, with no script to memorize. Cantarini recalled in 2018 that some of his spontaneous reactions remained in the final cut because Benigni loved his natural behavior. The director would sometimes say, "Yes, do that," when Giorgio did something unplanned. The innocence Cantarini brought to the role wasn't acted, it was real. He genuinely didn't understand the Holocaust's horror, which made his performance heartbreakingly authentic. Every smile, every naive and trusting look captured the purity of a child who finds solace in his father's protective fantasy. That a 5-year-old could anchor such an emotionally complex film demonstrates either Benigni's genius as a director or reckless irresponsibility. Critics argued both positions. Cantarini's parents separated shortly after his 5th birthday, and within 2 years he appeared in another Academy Awards-winning film, Ridley Scott's Gladiator, playing Russell Crowe's son. His childhood was swallowed by international fame before he could comprehend what was happening. Number 10. Restaurant improvisation sparked everything. The entire concept for Life is Beautiful erupted spontaneously during a Rome restaurant meal between Roberto Benigni and co-writer Vincenzo Harami. Benigni improvised a monologue about a father convincing his son that their concentration camp imprisonment was an elaborate game. In that moment, he realized paradoxically that a concentration camp was the perfect setting to prove life's beauty. If love and protectiveness could exist in humanity's worst place, they could exist anywhere. This impromptu performance became the film's philosophical foundation. Benigni explained, "This story is so simple." But it wasn't simple at all. It was audacious, dangerous, and commercially suicidal. No studio would greenlight a Holocaust comedy. The project required complete faith in Benigni's vision from Italian producers willing to risk everything. The screenplay by Schirami and Benigni was published in Italy in 1998 and featured scenes not in the final film, including one where Guido inadvertently witnesses a mass execution of partisans and spots his friend Ferruccio among them. This deleted scene would have made the film's second half far darker, emphasizing the ever-present death surrounding the game. Removing it allowed Benigni to maintain the fable-like quality he needed for the comedy to work. The Restaurant Brainstorm demonstrates how cinema's most controversial masterpieces often begin not with careful planning, but with spontaneous creative madness, one artist's manic inspiration that everyone else thinks will destroy his career. Number 9. Benigni's father survived Bergen-Belsen. The film's inspiration came directly from Roberto Benigni's father, Luigi Benigni, who spent 2 years in the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp during World War II. After Italy became a co-belligerent of the Allies in 1943, Luigi was captured and sent to a Nazi labor camp. When he returned home and his children asked about his experiences, Luigi told the stories humorously, finding that this helped him cope with the trauma while avoiding scaring his young kids. This family history gave Roberto both the moral authority and emotional necessity to make Life is Beautiful. He wasn't an outsider exploiting the Holocaust. He was a son processing his father's suffering through the only language he knew, comedy. Benigni explained his philosophy. To laugh and to cry comes from the same point of the soul, no? I'm a storyteller. The crux of the matter is to reach beauty, poetry. It doesn't matter if that is comedy or tragedy. They're the same if you reach the beauty. Luigi's humorous recounting became the template for Guido's game, a father using imagination and humor as shields against horror. The film is Roberto's attempt to understand how his father survived psychologically, how love and humor became weapons against dehumanization. After reading Primo Levi's Holocaust memoir, Benigni said, "I was not the same man I was the day before. The combination of personal family history and literary confrontation with the Holocaust's full horror created the emotional foundation for a film that would divide the prices." World. Number 8. The Trotsky title connection. Roberto Benigni revealed that the title Life is Beautiful comes from a quote by Leon Trotsky. In exile in Mexico in 1940, knowing he was about to be killed by Joseph Stalin's assassins, Trotsky saw his wife in the garden and wrote that, despite everything, life is beautiful. This detail transforms the title from sentimental optimism into defiant affirmation in the face of certain death. The Trotsky connection elevates the film's philosophical stakes. Benigni deliberately chose a title that would expose the film to further critical venom, as one academic noted. He could have kept the original Italian title Buongiorno Principessa, Good Morning Princess, which references Guido's romantic greeting to Dora and would have softened prejudice against a Holocaust comedy. Instead, Benigni selected a title that forces viewers to ask impossible questions. Can anyone who survived the camps say life is beautiful? Doesn't the title itself mock those who died? Film critic Gerald Peary sarcastically asked, "Can you imagine anyone who actually survived the camps saying that?" But that's precisely Benigni's point. The title is provocative, designed to make audiences uncomfortable, to force confrontation with the film's central tension between horror and hope. The Trotsky reference suggests that affirming life's beauty isn't denial of evil's existence, it's defiance against evil's power to destroy human spirit. Whether this defiance is inspirational or offensive depends entirely on the viewer's perspective, which is why the debate continues. Number 7. Pope John Paul II's Top 5. After receiving a private screening with Roberto Benigni, Pope John Paul II placed Life is Beautiful in his top 5 favorite films. This papal endorsement carried enormous weight in Catholic Italy and demonstrated how the film transcended typical Holocaust narratives to reach universal themes of sacrifice, love, and faith. The Pope's embrace contrasted sharply with critiques from some Jewish scholars. While Mel Brooks condemned the film and Israeli author Kobe Neve wrote an entire 2000 book titled Life is Beautiful, but Not for Jews. Another view of the film by Benigni, the Catholic Church's leader, found profound spiritual meaning in Guido's sacrifice. The papal screening and endorsement helped the film in Italy, where Benigni was already treated as a national hero by the Italian press. The film made $48,700,000 in Italy alone, and when aired on Italian television station RAI on October 22, 2001, it was viewed by 16 million people, making it the most watched Italian film on Italian television. The Pope's endorsement validated Benigni's approach for Catholic audiences who saw Guido's sacrifice through the lens of Christ like martyrdom, a father giving his life to save his son. This religious interpretation allowed the film to transcend Holocaust specifics and become a universal story of parental love. The papal approval demonstrates how Life is Beautiful functioned as a Rorschach test. Different communities saw radically different films depending on their perspective, religious background, and relationship to Holocaust memory. Number 6. $230 million box office miracle. Life is Beautiful was made for a modest budget of approximately 20 billion Italian lire, about $11 to $12 million, yet grossed over $230 million worldwide, making it one of the highest-grossing non-English language films of all time. It earned $57,600,000 in the United States alone, becoming the second highest-grossing foreign language film in United States history until Crouching Tiger. Hidden Dragon surpassed it in 2000. This commercial triumph was unprecedented for a subtitled Holocaust film. Miramax, which distributed it in the United States starting October 23, 1998, attempted to capitalize on the success by releasing an English-dubbed version, but it proved far less successful than the subtitled Italian original. Audiences wanted Benigni's voice, his cadence, his Italian charm. Dubbing destroyed the film's magic. The box office success demonstrated something critics refused to acknowledge. Audiences craved this story. They wanted to cry and laugh simultaneously, to see the Holocaust through a lens other than unrelenting misery. For Holocaust scholars and survivors who felt the film trivialized suffering, this commercial success felt like betrayal, the masses choosing feel-good manipulation over historical honesty. But defenders argued the film's popularity proved its emotional authenticity. People don't pay $230 million to watch cynical exploitation. They pay to experience genuine human connection, and Life is Beautiful delivered that connection through humor, romance, and heartbreak. The box office vindicated Benigni's gamble, but also fueled critics' fury that audiences would rather watch comforting fantasy than confront genocidal horror. Number 5. The chair-jumping Academy Awards moment. When Sophia Loren announced Life is Beautiful as the winner for Best Foreign Language Film at the 1999 Academy Awards, Roberto Benigni didn't walk to the stage, he bounced. Overcome with giddy delight, he literally climbed over seats, stood on chairbacks, clutched Steven Spielberg's hand along the way, waved his arms, calling for cheers, and then bounced up each step to retrieve his Academy Awards from Loren. It became one of the Academy Awards' most iconic moments. Later that evening, when Benigni won Best Actor, becoming the first actor to win the category for a non-English language performance since Sophia Loren in 1961, he returned to the stage via the aisle, but remained ebullient, saying, "This is a terrible mistake because I used up all my English." He closed by quoting Dante's Divine Comedy, "The love that moves the sun and all the stars." At the following year's ceremony, when Benigni presented the Best Actress nominees, host Billy Crystal playfully appeared behind him with a large butterfly net to catch him if he got excessive again. The chair jumping became cultural shorthand for pure, unfiltered joy, a rebuke to Hollywood's typical, calculated cool. Tom Stoppard, accepting his Academy Awards for co-writing Shakespeare in Love that same night, got a massive laugh when he deadpanned, "I'm behaving like Roberto Benigni underneath." Ray Romano later parodied Benigni's behavior on Saturday Night Live. The moment embodied everything the film represented: childlike exuberance, unashamed emotion, life-affirming joy in the face of skepticism. Critics who hated the film's sentimentality found the Academy Awards moment equally offensive. Supporters saw a man who understood that embracing life's beauty requires abandoning cynicism entirely. Number 4. The Nobel Laureate's defense. Nobel Prize-winning author Imre Kertész, a Holocaust survivor, passionately defended Life is Beautiful against critics who dismissed it as comedy rather than tragedy. Imre Kertész argued that detractors had missed the film's point entirely and accused them of Holocaust conformism, expecting Holocaust films to follow rigid formulas rather than finding new artistic approaches to represent unspeakable horror. Imre Kertész's defense carried weight that Benigni's couldn't. As an Auschwitz survivor and Nobel laureate, his endorsement validated the film's artistic choices for those who might otherwise dismiss it as trivializing. He drew attention to how the film is actually a tragedy disguised as comedy. Guido dies, the family is destroyed, innocence is obliterated. That Benigni wraps this tragedy in humor doesn't diminish the horror. It makes the horror more bearable for audiences who might otherwise turn away. This debate reveals fundamental questions about how art should represent genocide. Must Holocaust films always be solemn, grim, unflinching? Or can humor, hope, and beauty coexist with historical horror? Imre Kertész argued that Holocaust conformism in cinema creates formulaic representations that ossify memory rather than keeping it alive. Life is Beautiful breaks the formula, which is precisely why it matters. The fact that a Nobel laureate and Holocaust survivor defended the film demonstrates how divided even survivors were about the appropriate way to remember and represent their experiences. And go ahead and like and subscribe because the remaining facts reveal even more controversial secrets about this cultural lightning rod. Number 3. The Rubino-Romeo Salmoni inspiration. The screenplay was inspired by Rubino-Romeo Salmoni's book In the End, I Beat Hitler, which incorporates elements of irony and black comedy into Holocaust survival narrative. Salmoni was an Italian Jew deported to Auschwitz who survived and was reunited with his parents, but discovered his brothers had been murdered. Benigni stated he wished to commemorate Salmoni as a man who wished to live in the right way. Salmoni's book, first published in Japan in 1966 under the title Tora, 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 coincidentally, the same as the war film, demonstrated that humor and irony were survival mechanisms used by actual Holocaust victims, not inventions of insensitive filmmakers. This provided Benigni with both inspiration and moral cover. He wasn't imposing comedy onto the Holocaust from outside. He was following the example of survivors who used humor to cope. The character names Dora and Guido came from Dora Di Giovanni and Guido Vittoriano Basile, uncles of Nicoletta Braschi, Benigni's wife and co-star. This personal connection to Italian Jewish families touched by the Holocaust gave the film additional authenticity. The Salmoni inspiration demonstrates that Life is Beautiful emerged from actual Holocaust testimony rather than pure imagination. Survivors did tell stories with irony and dark comedy. The question becomes, does representing their humor honor their resilience or risk allowing audiences to minimize their suffering? Salmoni's own book provides evidence that humor belonged in Holocaust narrative, but whether that humor works in a mainstream romantic comedy remains the controversy's beating heart. Number 2. Cannes Grand Prix victory. Life is Beautiful was a late addition to the 1998 Cannes Film Festival selection, and its reception there previewed the global divide it would create. The film won the Grand Prix, essentially second place after the Palme d'Or, with jury president Martin Scorsese presiding. When Benigni accepted the award, he famously kissed Scorsese's feet in gratitude, a moment of Italian theatrical excess that delighted some and embarrassed others. Cannes critics were split. The Los Angeles Times reported the film faced some furious opposition at the festival, with left-wing critics particularly offended by its use of humor in connection with the Holocaust. David Rooney of Variety said it had mixed results, with surprising depth and poignancy in Benigni's performance but visually rather flat camera work. Kenneth Turan noted what was surprising about this unlikely film is that it succeeds despite the impossible tonal balance it attempts. The Cannes victory launched the film toward Academy Awards glory but also established the battle lines that would define its reception. Festival audiences in Toronto and Vancouver also voted it their favorite film, demonstrating its popular appeal while critics sharpened their knives. The Grand Prix was significant because it came from Scorsese's jury, a director known for unflinching depictions of violence who apparently saw value in Benigni's gentler approach. This high art endorsement combined with massive popular success created the perfect storm. A crowd-pleasing film that serious cinephiles could either champion or condemn depending on their perspective about Holocaust representation. Number 1. Roger Ebert's passionate defense. Roger Ebert, America's most influential film critic, gave Life is Beautiful 3.5 out of 4 stars and wrote one of its most passionate defenses against critics who accused it of trivializing the Holocaust. Ebert argued, Benigni isn't really making comedy out of the Holocaust anyway. He is showing how Guido uses the only gift at his command to protect his son. If he had a gun, he would shoot at the fascists. If he had an army, he would destroy them. He is a clown, and comedy is his weapon. Ebert's defense reframed the criticism entirely. The film doesn't trivialize suffering. It shows a father using his only available tool to shield his child. This interpretation aligned with Benigni's stated intentions and his father's actual behavior in the camps. Ebert also noted the film actually softens the Holocaust slightly to make the humor possible at all. In the real death camps, there would be no role for Guido. This acknowledgement of the film's unrealism was crucial. Ebert didn't pretend it was documentary. He argued it was not about Nazis and fascists, but about the human spirit. It is about rescuing whatever is good and hopeful from the wreckage of dreams. Michael Wilmington of the Chicago Tribune went further, giving it a perfect 100 out of 100 score and calling it a deeply moving blend of comedy and tragedy. But not everyone agreed. British Broadcasting Corporation critic Tom Dawson wrote in 2002, Benigni's sentimental fantasy diminishes the suffering of Holocaust victims. Owen Gleiberman of Entertainment Weekly called it the first feel-good Holocaust weepy and noted, there's only one problem. As shot, it looks like a game. These opposing interpretations from major critics demonstrate how Life is Beautiful became a battleground for fundamental questions about art, memory, and whether beauty can exist in proximity to genocide. Bonus fact: the fairy tale warning panel. The version shown at the Cannes Film Festival in 1998 is slightly different from the original Italian theatrical release. Festival organizers added a panel at the beginning stating, "This is a fairy tale," supposedly to avoid controversy over the subject matter. This warning label was meant to inoculate the film against charges of historical inaccuracy by explicitly framing it as fantasy rather than realism. The fairy tale framing reveals the tension at the film's heart. If audiences understand it's a fable, can they still accuse it of trivializing history? The warning suggests that without this disclaimer, viewers might mistake Benigni's vision for actual Holocaust representation, which would be disastrous. The panel functions like the literary tradition of Once Upon a Time, signaling that what follows operates by different rules than documentary or historical drama. Some critics argued this framing excuses everything. Others felt it was a cowardly hedge against legitimate criticism. The fact that Cannes felt compelled to add this warning demonstrates how nervous even the film's supporters were about its reception. They understood the gamble Benigni had taken and tried to protect him with genre designation. Whether this protection worked or simply highlighted the problem depends on your perspective. The fairy tale panel represents Cannes' institutional anxiety about programming a film that could either be remembered as groundbreaking or catastrophically offensive, with no middle ground between genius and disaster.